Okay, good afternoon. This is a meeting of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force and Evaluation Committee on Tuesday, November 23rd at 4 o'clock. It is being recorded and it's a beautiful afternoon. It's gorgeous light outside my window. I wanted to call this meeting because, as you know, we had a request from the chair of the select board to provide additional information, specifically giving a little more overview of all three proposals. Myself and Harry and Becky worked very hard on that over the weekend and turned it in. And Ryan thanked us for that. And he is moving us up a little bit on the agenda tonight. I think we will be first under business before the consultant, the TA search consultant presentation. I did that this afternoon that he was trying to do that. But I wanted the courtesy of everybody to see the work that we put, the additional information that we gave to the select board, and ask if you have any questions about it. I can see if I can share it. Let's see.
You and Harry and Rebecca are to be thanked for, must have been a tremendous amount of work that went into this.
Agreed. Thank you.
I think most of the heavy lifting was Elaine and Becky.
Well, Becky, I mean, she certainly formatted it all. She just like, you know, did all the framework for it. And yeah, we're very grateful because it wouldn't have looked like this if I had to do it by myself at all. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, can you see this?
Even
Yep.
better.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I'll just go through it, and if you have any questions, let me know. I did share it with Laura to make sure we were on the right page, and she thought it was excellent. Information, plenty of information without overwhelming. So we really and this, I think the way to do it tonight, but this will have to be the framework of the presentation, you know, filling in gaps in the report that we sent. So we felt it was really, really important to make sure everybody really understood the RFP process that we have gone through. So Harry very kindly created a couple of slides to that purpose. Really all the pieces of what had been done and all the work that we did.
You know,
Harry,
one thing, Elaine, I noticed on this page, we talk about the water system, but we also consulted with the wastewater, or now the clean water. What is their official name now?
yeah, the clean water.
Clean water.
Committee.
So you could just add that as a comment.
Yeah, right.
That may come up in conversation.
Yeah, we can deal with that as part of our presentation.
Yeah.
I thought it was important to do this because what I was trying to accomplish was to keep the select board from going off the reservation, because, you know, basically we all understand that this process is we apply the evaluation criteria from the RFP to each of the proposals, and that gives us a ranking. And then if we're going to deviate from that, which we chose not to, we've got to have a very good reason. So I want to just convey to them that this is a structured process that's a creature of statute, and it's not an opportunity for a start from scratch beauty contest tonight.
Let's see. Am I going to be able to see if anybody else is trying to get in? Now that
It should still pop up even.
Okay. I guess, you know, Ryan will recognize me tonight, but Harry, may I turn these first few slides over to you for?
Certainly.
Okay. And great. Okay, and then Ryan,
The other thing before we leave that, the very comment at the very bottom of the last slide is designed to make sure that nobody reads these slides and say, this is the criteria that the task force applied. I wanted to make it clear that this was a kind of a sampling rather than an all-inclusive, because I don't want an unsuccessful developer to say that we did it wrong. So that's why it says this is a sample of the highlights as opposed to the whole Megillah.
right, I'm hoping that we can get through our part of it in a half an hour or less to have plenty of time for questions. So that would be my goal with this. I probably haven't talked so much in years if as I go through this, but okay. So once we get through that, why didn't that not let me advance? Now it's not letting me go forward. Okay. Ryan had asked for a summary of the RFP, and there are a lot of sort of nitty-gritty pieces of the RFP that they all had to comply with, where there wasn't much room for, we didn't have to discuss it. We just had to say yes. They gave us what we needed, but this is the list going through the RFP where there was, these are the ideas and desires we put forward that they were each responding to in their own way. I don't want to have to read through this with people. I'd rather just kind of give an overview of what's on the page, hopefully.
Absolutely. The very studies have shown the very worst thing you can do with a PowerPoint presentation is read the slides.
Right. But people will be reading them and they might not pay
Right.
attention to what you say, but
Right.
just to keep it short and okie dokie. And then basically what we did was create, Ryan really wanted to see the three proposals side by side as much as possible. So we took the criteria basically and did this for each one and included our ratings as part of it on each one, and just really the highlights, the big pieces that we feel distinguished one from another.
Okay, Elaine, I have two questions on this one.
Sure.
Why did we not mention that all three developers have Mass Works grants experience? And I mean, we highlighted POA as having it, but in fact, all three developers have received Mass Works grants. My next question is, aren't all three developers using third-party management, or am I mistaken?
No, both POA and TCB have, strongly committed to using their management arm. As best as I interpret what they're saying, yes.
It's in-house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, POA has their thing called POA Communities, and TCB has a name for their housing arm too. Kathleen, do you by any chance have the page numbers on TCBs or Civicos that talk about MassWorks grants? Because
I don't.
I didn't see it clearly in those, which is why it's not there, but.
Well, I definitely know with Civico and I think it was the Lincoln, the Oriole Landing, they got a MassWorks grant for that project.
Okay.
Or it was ACO Flats, one or the other. I'm just saying,
Sure.
they probably all have experience with MassWorks grants, and it's, you're singling out POA as having the only experience with it, and the other two I'm sure do as well, so.
Okay, well, I'll look back and see if I can find that and bring it up, but the one, I guess the one under POA could have been clarified with assisted Brewster in getting a MassWorks grant, so I could qualify that.
This kind of frames the whole issue with doing this PowerPoint is it's impossible to be exhaustive on every detail in every category without a 4-hour presentation. And that was the risk that, we were trying to avoid, was having it appear that we cherry picked one or two facts and made a decision based on them.
Well, it does look that way.
So that was the challenge, and that's why, my choice would have been not to do this at all.
Not to do the PowerPoint at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but here we are.
mhm. Okay, but noted. Thank you, Kathleen. I will see if I can look back and I can qualify it just very briefly too. I mean, we do, we had two proposals that were so much more in depth than one, that I don't want to slight the ones that gave more information. So I want to be careful. Affordability is a big one and kind of tricky to explain. But I think that some of the statements Emily made in her report would be the easiest way to do this, to explain the one statement under POA that they had a slightly larger proposed percentage of units available to our main target range. I mean, that, she showed that TCB's 6 low-income housing tax credits didn't just met the minimum. POA's 8 exceeded it. Civico's did not meet it. So it's a tricky one, but it's an important one, I think, to drive home the point of meeting the real target audience of this particular proposal. I wanted to share the slide that the Cape Cod Commission worked so hard on for us, showing the range of incomes for many of the jobs in Wellfleet, and that it really solidly hits the mix of rents and that we are looking for in our proposal.
Elaine,
Yes.
we talked about, go back one. We talked about saying what that 60 and 80% of AMI would correspond to, so that people have a good sense of, so these apartments would be affordable to almost everybody on this graph, depending upon family size, I guess is where I'm saying. It might be the point to bring it home, so that most of the folks who work in these jobs would qualify to live in those places.
Okay. And then we did, Becky took the charts and graphs from each proposer to give people an idea of looking at the size of the units, the affordability, the rent. So we have it for POA, which once again, this is where their 2 and 3 bedroom mix met DHCD's requirements. And POA's, TCB's didn't, according to Emily. And, I don't know if we say things, we were not thrilled with the 8 little tiny studios in the attic. Do we want to get into that, or just, I'd like to concentrate on the positives of POA related to the RFP, not, as Laura said, we're comparing each individually to the RFP, not necessarily to each other, but we have to show why POA outperformed in the areas that we feel they did. And the Civico unit mix and affordability. talking about infrastructure and green design, just the high points.
Elaine, is there, could we have, on this slide added that, all three developers, were willing to meet the 44% contribution to wastewater? I think this is, a significant, point that's being left out of, the presentation tonight to the Board of Selectmen, for several reasons. First and foremost, it'll be the first of its kind in the town of Wellfleet of a public and private partnership for wastewater. I hope it's not the last, but I think it's significant to mention that this board is very deeply concerned with wastewater and the 208 watershed plan.
Mhm.
And I would have brought up that all three developers were willing to make that 44% contribution. It's great that in POAs, you've got built and operates 2 wastewater treatment plants that serves abutters. It'll be the town of Wellfleet building this plant. We'll be
Right.
the ones pulling the permit and partnering for funding with POA.
Right. I think, I don't want to change the slides that they have seen, but I can certainly say that.
You might bring that up to them, or they're going to ask you,
Right, right, yep.
especially Chair Curley.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then this is, I think I was wrong. I think it's 9 buildings for POA. This is the one that's the big, really the most subjective of all. But we do have the fact that POAS appears to maintain the widest buffer, which we feel is really, really important. Fewer buildings take up much less of the site. They have 2 indoor community spaces. TCB has 1. Civico did not go in that direction. And then we have quick slides of trying to show as best as possible, illustrating the sort of overall layout and then the look of it. I think this is where we do have to stress that these are proposals that every developer has said if they are selected, they will be working with the town, with the community, and of course with the ZBA to make necessary changes. So I think that's important. I mean, with POA, I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions about the elevator building, as they call it, the apartment building. And TCB, I don't know, there's not too much to just know, and generally it's all fine, but and Civico's, we do have to point out how the whole water tower thing has been a little bit hard to do, but they did try to clarify that a little bit, but just to show how it takes up more of the space. It's very, very close to, it's very, just the big thing with POA was that it left much more of the site alone, a little more community oriented, financial feasibility, mostly Emily's report, just letting them show what local funds they might be looking for. Civico up there in the information they gave to Emily, but because people were not allowed to change what they had proposed, we're not showing that, but they had up to 725. But we have to deal with what was in the proposal and what we found out through our interviews and requests for clarifying information.
Elaine, on that last slide, I suspect you'll get a question about the tax abatement.
Right, yes.
So that's one where you can say that's really subject to negotiation in the LDA.
Right. right.
But Elaine, it doesn't align with Emily's opinion in her report. This sentence does not align with that opinion on the tax abatement. Her feasibility, the financial feasibility of POA, she says that $3.4 million hinges on that tax abatement in order for them to make the numbers work. I went back and reread all of that today.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that that sentence is as transparent as it should be in aligning with Emily's opinion. But again,
Right,
I think I agree with Gary, probably going to get asked about that.
right. And I this is where I thought that could be explained. And I plan to do that, but also with the caveat that POA in their proposal recognize that that might be something the town does not want to do and wants to talk about it. But certainly,
Well-
definitely what Emily said too.
In the interest of both time and not opening up cans of worms, is I would wait for them to raise any of these questions as opposed to take the stand on them and see what their concerns or interests are.
That makes
Okay.
sense to me.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I do. Okay. We'll see how it's feeling as it goes
No,
along.
exactly right. You don't know what the audience will be interested in. So
Right, right. And we can certainly, if it doesn't come up, but I'm sure it will. I think it does need to be addressed for sure. I mean, especially the few things with POA. I mean, there's a ton of stuff we could address in Civico's proposal, but we don't want to do that. It's, I'm hoping that we might get to work with them sometime in the future. They just kind of missed the mark on a couple of really important pieces of this one, but don't want to go there. And then questions. So thank you for taking a look and for your responses. I definitely will work to do some small clarifications within it. I would hope that in terms of their questions, I'm happy to take the first stab, but I would like to make sure they get answered as fully as possible. If I miss something or leave something out, I would really appreciate, if we want to, Harry, if you would raise your hand and help with that.
Yeah, sure.
And really, I mean, anybody that feels that there was something very important that didn't get put forward, or and we'll see where it goes. Hi, Jim. Sorry you missed the beginning.
now, the best of luck with it, Elaine. You've done a tremendous job, and I think you have a good grasp of all of this, and I think you'll do a great job.
Well, Gary, I like how you're able to take a lot of that stuff though and say it in a more folksy way. So I'll try to challenge you. I mean, it's important. This is a big project for the town, and we want to make sure that we're giving them the best of what we, all the time we put in, and the deliberations, and the subtleties between proposals too. So I'm gonna have a cup of tea and get caffeinated. How many of you are able to be here tonight?
I might be, hopefully.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Harry, for all the weekend texts and work. And I'm glad we were able to give this to them. Kathleen, you called it at our evaluation meeting that as a select board member, you like detail. So hopefully this and any questions and clarifications will provide the detail. All right. Anything else anybody has?
No.
Thank you so much. See you
Everyone
later.
have a wonderful holiday.
Oh, yes.
We
Yes.
know
Yeah,
it's
happy Thanksgiving.
safe
Do you
travels
want
and
a motion
stay
to
healthy.
adjourn?
Sure.
I move to adjourn the meeting of November the 23rd of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
That's my kid on the phone, so. Okay,
Bye.
we're
Bye.
adjourned.
Happy holiday.
Bye-bye.